And Monty Neill, who is currently the Executive Director of the National Center for Fair and Open Testing, FairTest. He has led the FairTest work on testing in the public schools since 1987. He has initiated national and state coalitions of education, civil rights, religious, and parent organizations to work toward fundamental change in the assessment of students and in accountability. He currently chairs the Forum on Educational Accountability, an alliance working to overhaul the No Child Left Behind Act on the Joint Organizational Statement on No Child Left Behind, or NCLB, which has been signed by nearly 150 national groups. He has earned a doctorate at Harvard University with his dissertation, The Struggle of Boston's Black Community for Quality and Equality in Education, which was 1960 to 1985, and he has taught and been an administrator in preschool, high school, and college, and he's a grandfather of 3 children in the public school. So hopefully the work that he's doing will help alleviate the abundance testing and the development of inappropriate practices that we're facing in our classroom every day.
Well, after hearing Kelly, and I was in Milwaukee last night talking with some teacher union folks, including Kelly and Bob and so on. But it's very clear that in the wake of No Child Left Behind in particular, that the amount of testing has exploded beyond all recognition. It used to be, you could say, oh, the special ed kids got a lot of extra testing or something, but now it is simply nonstop, as Kelly described. Little testlets, probes. I really hadn't heard that word until I really registered it until last night, and it's like sci-fi, a colonoscopy or something. It's really, really, I've had it. It's not pleasant. So, and I'm sure these probes are not pleasant to the kids, or of course to the teachers. So, it follows in a way. Now it's weird, NCLB doubled and tripled the amount of testing required in the country. Right? Wisconsin required statewide testing grades 4, 8, and 10 prior to NCLB, but after NCLB you had to go 3 through 8 plus high school. So you close to triple the amount of testing. Same in Massachusetts. In some states they were already doing that, like southern states. So overall, our calculation was to double the amount of testing in the U.S., and that's bad, because these tests are not educationally helpful, and we were very clear that these tests were going to have a bad effect on curriculum and instruction. We didn't really know how bad it was going to get. We really did not anticipate what would follow in the wake. So then you had districts doing benchmark tests. I don't recall benchmark, there were a few. I remember we did a survey back about '88 or so, and Newark was testing 10, 11 times a year. So they were already into this benchmark mode for that period of time, but that was really rare. All the cities we were talking to, they didn't do that stuff. Suddenly it's common. 2, 3, 4 times a year to get a quote-unquote benchmark test. A benchmark test is a periodic test or an interim test, but essentially they are made up by your main testing company or another vendor of really slapdash multiple choice items, often delivered on a computer. Turn those scores around real fast, and they're supposed to predict how well you'll do on the big test. So then you can go, oh, a few items here shows that, Juanita is not doing quite well enough on multiplying fractions. Let's spend a lot of time with Juanita on multiplying fractions. Unless, of course, if you were a smart teacher, you'd know if she was off or on that day at the school, and maybe Juanita, you probably already knew if she was having trouble. And you might know the test was wrong, or even right, but it doesn't even tell you what then to do. So Juanita didn't get it. Why? If you don't know why, what are you going to do with her? So the tests don't really tell you very much as teachers, but they supposedly tell administrators something, and what they really do, of course, is put you in line to deal with and prepare for the big test. So, yeah. Oh, well, that's terrible. And then I noticed, well, those were being paraded and sold as formative assessments. Now, there was big research done by Paul Black and Dylan William a decade or so ago. And essentially what it found out that formative assessment has incredibly powerful educational effects. That it's more effective for kids who are further behind, and that it really does increase not only test scores but other outcomes of learning. Okay, that sounds very good. So, one should, and it makes a certain sense. What do I mean by formative assessment? Well, It's not in the file, I handed out to you all. Well, on our website, fairtest.org, we put up a position paper on assessment for learning out of a conference on assessment for learning in New Zealand. They insist on using the term assessment for learning instead of formative assessment. And they say a definition. Assessment for learning is part of everyday practice by students, teachers, and peers that seeks, reflects upon, and responds to information from dialogue, demonstration, and observation in ways that enhance ongoing learning. And in a report from the National Association of State Boards of Education, you've got one in your state, and supposedly it's not binding on them, of course, but this should be relevant to them. Formative assessments are used to guide teaching and learning processes. It refers to a number of assessment activities that teachers and students engage in on a day-to-day basis to gauge students' understanding of content, along with the performance skills used to demonstrate understanding. It may include any number of instructionally embedded activities, such as, and this is the critical point, because contrast this with what's happening to Kelly and to many of you. Observations, homework, student writing, quizzes, or project-based work. It should be developed locally, in accord by teachers, to diagnose gaps in student learning and adjust ongoing teaching and learning to improve students' achievement of intended instructional outcomes. I like the other definition better. It involves students in a very serious way, because formative assessment, where students do learn to do self-assessing and peer assessing, is more powerful than this. It's a little mechanical, but look, this doesn't have anything to do with these probes and little testlets and so on, nothing. And the difference, most critically, is that formative, look, the other piece of research, teachers spend a lot of time assessing. People have done studies in time, teachers spend a third of their time assessing. But what's happening is that the teacher time on assessing is being replaced by outside, externally mandated, on somebody else's schedule, whether or not they're relevant to the kids, probes, etc. The data being fed on computers back to the central office for whatever massaging they want to do. And it has nothing to do with on-demand, on-the-fly, etc., plus tied to your own curriculum, information gathering about whether or not the kids have understood, what they did get, what their strengths are, where, and how to help them move from here to there, individually, in groups, and the class as a whole. That's what formative assessment does. And then you get the teachers, the students involved in this, and they learn to do it. And they have then learned to kind of manage your own learning skills that are actually very vital, like when you get to college. So they can learn that at a very young age. So this is a begin to, and keep their own documentation. This kind of stuff has been done. It has nothing to do with what's going on. So why is all this going on? The push to score high on the standardized tests is, of course, the big framework in which this is happening. And that's a major push for it. The second thing is that the research shows that teachers aren't real good at assessing. They didn't get it in college. Their own college profs probably provided bad role models. There's little professional development, and so the repertoire that most teachers have around assessment is really not up to what it needs to be. So this fills the gap. So let's go buy something becomes the answer. We're not going to spend the money to actually have the teachers collaborate with each other and bring in some people to help them too, and so you have an ongoing learning process where the teachers get better at it and they help each other get better at it. No, we'll buy a little thingy off the shelf and inflict it on the teachers and standardize the whole operation. And what it also does, and this is a great deal of importance to some folks, so it may not even be on the agenda of others who are pushing it, is the ability to control. That is, they can ostensibly control Kelly in the classroom by making sure she's administered these things at the right time, in the right quantity. And then, of course, whether the data shows that Kelly's efforts have made it better. That is, the kids are doing better on the thinglets, the testlets. And so there's an ability to really control, because I would predict that one of the things that will happen will say, oh no, we won't use the standardized tests to evaluate teachers other than a small part. But what we are looking for is ongoing classroom evidence. What's the ongoing classroom evidence? The probes and testlets. And they'll start evaluating teachers on not only whether you follow the rules, but in how well kids are doing on those things. So that's something that we could look for if things are not successful.